And our next speaker also carries with her this same youthful energy that we just witnessed. She carries this with her on a daily basis, and this is Auntie Anu Venkateswaran. Anu Auntie, she was born into a family that's been in Swami's fold since 1964. She went through the Bhavika's program in Chennai and graduated from the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning Anantapur campus with a bachelor's degree in physics. After moving to the US, she's been actively involved in all three wings of the SSSIO, and currently she serves as the devotional coordinator for the SSSIO USA Southeast region and conducts weekly online study circles. She's also the SSE coordinator for the Northeast Atlanta Sai Center, where she teaches Group 4 SSE students. Anu Auntie has been grateful for the opportunities to study, reflect, and share Swami's message and stories on multiple occasions. This has allowed her to benefit from the process of self-reflection and a deeper understanding of Swami's teachings. Something I've personally witnessed about her is that, whether it's 6 a.m. Suprabhatam, 10 p.m. bhajan practice, there's no drop-off in her energy levels and enthusiasm. It's truly inspiring to see that. And she's also an excellent organizer and teacher, which I've seen firsthand at multiple regional retreats. So please join me in welcoming her. Sarah.
Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva Tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva Tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva Tvameva sarvam mama sai deva. I offer my prayerful salutations at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Mother Sai, Father Sai, who's our divine mother and father, our closest relative, dearest friend, highest wealth and wisdom. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, and dear children who are seated there who are really enjoying and getting into the Siyahamba, loving Sairams to you all. Yesterday, Brother Arvind walked us through Swami's visit to East Africa in 1968, and he did make a mention of Swami making a remark about what Sai family are you talking about. But Swami said something else after that too. He said, this entire universe is my family. And he said, I am the Sanatana, come as the Nutana. I am the eternal, come as the new. That ever new, ever fresh Lord, who came down as an avatar, only to give us an opportunity to experience his divine love. That's what today is about, adoration and divine love. Swami says, the moon can only be seen with the help of moonlight. You can't flash a highest laser beam and see the moon. You need the moonlight to be able to see the moon. So also God, who is love, can only be experienced with love, he says. And this is not limited to those who have had physical interaction with Swami or even darshan with Swami. And this morning we heard those beautiful stories of transformation. I don't know how many of those people actually went and saw Swami physically or touched his feet. Swami has transformed their lives. In the Bible it is said, blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. And Swami says, everyone can develop love for God. Dr. Hislop once asked Swami, so what is it, Swami, to love God? And at that time, Dr. Hislop had with him a tape recorder. This was many, many years ago. The young adults and the children will go, what is a tape recorder? So he had a tape recorder with him, and Swami asked him, now Hislop, when this tape recorder was in the store, in the shelf, for weeks and months, did you feel any emotion towards it? The obvious answer is no. He said, after you bought it, after you brought it home, you made sure you took good care of it and it wouldn't fall down, get a crack, break, dust, all of that, right? Yes, Swami. Swami says it's because you develop this feeling that this is your tape recorder. And he said, develop that same feeling. This is my God. I belong to him. It is to help us feel the sense of belonging that God comes down as an avatar, walks among us, takes our letter, pats our cheek, and it gives us one pat on our head like that. And one of Swami's greatest miracles, among many, is the transformation of the heart. And we've heard beautiful stories of transformation over the past day and a half. Swami once said to a group of students in Trai Vrindavan, boys, you have only two options. Either you let me in your heart, or I'll break open your heart and enter, but enter I will. And the way Swami enters each of our lives is very unique. Like we could be here, we'd be talking Sai Bhagavatam stories for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, and it would just not be over. We'd have to extend our vacation here, our pilgrimage, I should say, not a vacation. Swami entered my family in 1964. Actually, this year, just this morning, I was reminiscing. This year marks the 50th year that Swami's been in our family, and we've known of Swami. We've been very, very fortunate. And he entered the family through my mother's colleague in Chennai. My mother was at that time, this was in 1964, she was working in Chennai Port Trust. And one of her colleagues, who was a niece of the then state president, Shri Bhaskar, Harishana, you would know, it was a Saturday afternoon at work, and she said, I'm going to see Sai Baba, do you want to come with me? Now, my mother was raised in a very, very traditional, very conservative family, where she wouldn't just go somewhere because someone's asking her. But when Swami's pulling you with that string, you just go where he pulls you. She just decides to accompany her. And, as they say, she went, she saw, and she was conquered. My mother says she saw Swami and she knew that she had come face to face with God. There was no doubt in her mind. For some people it's instant, but for some others we need that proof. We need Swami to answer that one question that's burning in our minds. So the very next day, her parents and sisters accompanied her to see Swami. So the first darshan was in Perambur, in Sai Nivas, and the second darshan was in Maika House. Those who are from the Chennai area, you might know. So when the whole family went to see Swami, remember this, they had no background, they had no Dinatandi, no newspaper, nothing. They hadn't heard the word Sathya Sai Baba before this. But they knew there is something special, which my mother had shared from her one darshan. So when they were sitting for darshan, my mother was prodding my eldest aunt, who's physically handicapped due to polio. And when you're sitting down on the floor, you can't tell that that person's handicapped. So she's sitting on the floor. And my mother's prodding her from the back saying, ask Swami, tell him about your condition. Maybe he'll cure you. She's prodding. Swami comes up to her, and my aunt, all she said was, Swami. And Swami says, Telusule, ni shoes akkada petti ikkadochi kuchunnavu. Swami nito eppudu unnanu. In present tense. He said, I know you've left your shoes. He's referring to her surgical shoes. In those years, they would make these leather boots with these steel harnesses that would really press down here. She would have these wounds. So Swami was telling that I'm omnipresent. You don't have to tell me your problem. He explained to her, yes, I know it's over there and you're here. He was indirectly saying, this is your prarabdha karma. You have to go through this in this birth. And Swami touched her head, gave her pada namaskar. And the very following week, she got an appointment order for a government job, and she had been trying for a job for months and years. And Swami, this was a defining moment for the entire family, because they knew in that one instant that he's the omnipresent Lord who knows every thought, that even as it manifests, Swami knows it. He is the Antaranga Sai. We sing in our bhajan, sometimes we gloss over these words, we don't reflect on them. Antaranga Sai, he's the indweller of the heart. He knows our every pang. He knows our every call. So Swami became the Ishta Devata of the home, as a presiding deity of the home. And this morning, Anupam uncle, you mentioned the 4 cars. Swami literally took the family through the 4 cars, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So you had these manifestations of vibhuti, kumkum, and sugar appearing from the pictures, and statues which would be kept on the floor, which when they go to offer arti, the statue would be sitting up on a chair. So they had all these miracles. In the beginning, they couldn't make much sense out of it, but then they came to know that this is Swami's calling card. He's making that connection with you. And he made this connection with every single member in the family. And I'm sure all of you agree, as we heard from the testimonials today, he makes that connection. My grandfather, he comes from a lineage where they were following Shankaracharya, Kanchi Mahaperiva. So he was trying to reconcile this newfound love and devotion for Swami. But he felt, am I being loyal to Shankaracharya? For generations we followed him. Is this okay to do? And just as this thought was manifesting in his head, the Shankaracharya picture on the wall, Vibhuti manifests in this picture. So I call it a dynamic altar. They would talk and Swami would respond through the altar. So this is how Swami made that personal connection with each person. And in time, they got involved in the organization. My aunt and grandfather held a position in the organization. My mother was a Sevadal. And you'll see how, Swami kind of attracted them, pulled them with these miracles. And as Uncle mentioned this morning, he refined them with his teachings. So the first kar is the Chamatkaar, the miracles, the Leelas. And he refines them with the teachings, which is Samskaar, prods them along this path of selfless service, Paropkar, leading to the ultimate vision of the divine, which is Sakshatkaar. And that's what we all aim for, don't we? My grandparents and my aunt were very noble souls. I mean, they were already noble to begin with, so it was easy. When you're good, you're easily attracted to God, aren't you? So all three of them, in their final moments, they only remembered Swami. Though they were surrounded by family, children, grandchildren, they only called on Swami. They were chanting the name of Swami. My grandmother held a picture of Swami as she breathed her last. And my aunt and grandfather were calling on Swami as they passed. But Swami says this should be lifelong practice. And in the Bhagavata Purana, there's the story of a man named Ajamila who is born into a pious family, but he falls into sinful ways. But in his final moments, he calls on one of his sons who's named Narayana. And so the Yamadutas are chased away by the angels. So there's a merchant, Swami recalls this funny story of a merchant who's very money-minded. All he can think about is making money and profit. So he decides to name his 4 sons after different deities, Rama, Krishna, you name it, Govinda. That way, in his final moments, he'll call on one of the boys, which also happens to be the name of a deity, right? Yes, when the moment comes, he does call, but not to one of the sons. He says, you fools, all of you are here, who's minding the shop? So the last thought was the shop. What you reflect on your entire life is what you'll think about in the end too. So remembering God should be a constant practice. So I grew up hearing these stories or these miracles from my grandparents and my Bal, because that's how love for Swami was sown in me. But it wasn't until I joined Swami's college in the hostel that I learned the concept, I would call it concept, and Swami talked about this in his discourse yesterday, Sarva Karma Bhagavat Prityartham, doing every action, singing a bhajan, only to please God, setting up the altar, only to please God. So at that age, it was like, whether it's keeping your room clean, being disciplined, waking up early in the morning to do your prayers, everything was done with the sole intent of pleasing God. So this is something I'm very grateful for that I learned in the hostel. It's almost like having this awareness that whatever you're doing it with the intent of pleasing God, and not separating work as Sai work and your personal work. Everything is Sai work. Do well in everything. And I would eagerly look forward to these trips to Parthi from Anantapur. It was just a few hours bus ride. And my mother would encourage me, and I had a lot of homesickness. So every time I would go from Anantapur to Parthi, she would come from Chennai to Parthi to meet me there. And she encouraged me in his Shivratri discourse in 1955. Swami says, of all the insanities, he calls it insanities, of all the insanities that harass people, God madness is the least harmful and the most beneficial. So I'm very grateful for my mother's support in this God madness, or pichi as Swami would call it. But every trip to see Swami was a transformative experience. The theme for this session is transformational experiences. Every trip, whether it's Swami just pulling the rug from under my feet, or playing a prank on me, or materializing vibhuti, taking a letter, every trip was transformational. It is said, darshanam papanashanam, having the sight of the Lord, being able to see the Lord, it destroys your sins. Sparshanam, when you get to touch his feet, or when he pats your cheek, when you have that opportunity. Sparshanam karma vimochanam. Your karmas are burnt away like that. Years of karma burnt away like that. Sambhashanam sankatanashanam. Having this conversation with the Lord, where even if he's asking you, how many idlis did you eat for breakfast? Just that sambhashana opportunity, it destroys all our troubles. Swami narrates the story of, yesterday Brother Arvind mentioned Krishna Chaitanya. Actually, if you go and look this up, you can just say Krishna Chaitanya and the thief, and this will come up. And you'll understand why I'm sharing this incident. Shri Krishna Chaitanya is a 15th century Hindu saint. And he was lost in Krishna consciousness. He would sing and dance and forget himself, and he would just be singing the Lord's name. One time, he's surrounded by all of these merchants from this town, and a thief comes in there wanting to, rob some of those rich merchants. He comes in there and he too enjoys the singing and dancing, and for a moment he forgets why he came. And then after the singing is done, when Sri Krishna Chaitanya is giving a discourse to some of the children, he waits patiently and he goes up to him and asks, Swami, can you please give me a mantra? And Sri Krishna Chaitanya says, I will, but tell me, what's your name? What do you do? They call me Rama the thief, he says. And Krishna Chaitanya says, oh, what a shame. You have this name Rama, but you're a thief. I will give you the mantra, but what is the Guru Dakshina you will give me? What is the fee you will give me? And he says, I don't have anything. All I have is the loot. Whatever I steal, that's all I have. I can give you a share from that if you want. And he says, no, I don't want any part of that. He says, I will teach you this mantra. Can you give up this, robbing people? He says, no, this is the only thing I know. This is what my father taught me. This is what my grandfather did. This is all I ever know. Then Sri Krishna Chaitanya says, all right, promise me that every time before you get ready to rob someone, you're going to sit down and you're going to recite this mantra I'm about to give you 108 times. And he whispers into his ear. Remember, I had said Darshanam Papanashanam. Already this transformation is happening because he has his touch. He's whispering in his ears. His Sambhashanam is happening. And he says, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And this man says, I will promise you this. He heads straight to the richest merchant's house over there. And he gets ready to rob. It's nice. They're all with Krishna Chaitanya singing and dancing. He goes, gets ready, breaks open, picks the lock, and he sits in front and he begins to chant, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he's lost in chanting the Lord's name. He doesn't realize the lady of the house is back, and she's worn her finest jewelry. She's coming to the locker to put her jewels away. Instead of shouting, thief, thief, she says, oh, this must be a saint who's part of that team. He's come here to bless our house. And they all gather around and they're all standing like this. This man finishes his 108 chants and he opens his eyes and he realizes what has happened. And they're all going, Swami, Swami. He says, just for pretending to be like this, if I can get the adoration of people, what if I really took to this path? And he comes clean. He tells them, I did not come here with the best of intentions. This is what I planned. He says, I want to give all this up and I want to go to the forest and meditate. They praise him for it. They even arrange a palanquin. They take him around on a procession. And Swami narrates this in a very beautiful, inimitable way. Nobody can even attempt to narrate it like Swami. And they go drop him off. And this is a story of a sinner to a saint. This is a transformational story of a sinner to a saint. We are here in this holy land of Africa. Swami has visited Uganda. The next story I'm about to share, transformational story, is about a devotee from Uganda. He came to Swami in 1960. 5 years later, he was visiting Swami in Parthi. He was on a pilgrimage. On the last day when he was ready to return, this gentleman was a physician. Many of you may have heard, Dr. Kishan Gadia. Swami called him on the last day, and Swami materialized for him. Yesterday, Brother Leonardo shared that he offered Swami his visiting card. Imagine Swami materializing a visiting card with his picture, Sri Sathya Sai Baba, Penakonda Taluk, Anantapur district, and he materializes his visiting card, gives it to Dr. Gadia, and Swami says to him, never take it out of your wallet. This has always got to stay in your wallet. He says, yes, Swami. Sometimes Swami tells us something, and we may not know why he's saying that, but it'll make sense 10 years later. 7 years later, there were political disturbances in Africa. Many of you may be aware at that time. And it was not considered very safe for people to live there. People like himself, of Indian origin. He didn't feel safe there. But nevertheless, he was doing seva. He was, treating actually a lot of people in the villages. One morning, he was en route to work. A soldier stops him. An armed soldier stops him, and he searches the vehicle. Doesn't find any weapons. He gets in the car and he says, drive. When they drive for a few miles, he goes to an area where there's no other vehicles, there's these tall bushes. He asks him to get down from the car. He gets down, follows him, points the gun at him and says, you have two options. I'm going to shoot you now. You can either smoke a cigarette or you can pray to your God. Of course, Dr. Gadia is crying. He says, I have children. Let me talk to my children. He says, no. These are your only two choices. Pray to your God. And then Dr. Gadia remembers that Swami had given him this card 7 years ago. He opens his wallet and he cries out to Swami, Swami, please come, I need you now. And he calls out to him. Now this soldier is curious. He asks angrily, who is your God? Sai Baba, he says. And he gives him this tiny little visiting card. The soldier, who came there with an intent to kill this man, looks at the card and he reads out the contents of this visiting card. Sathya Sai Baba, and then he reads all of that. He returns the card to Dr. Gadia and he says, you can go. And he turns around and he walks away. Just as abruptly as he was stopped, he was allowed to go back. Just like that. Dr. Gadia is just happy. He just leaves there. In the meantime, there was another driver who saw all this happening and he called the army and they were able to escort him away. Within 2 days, he packs up his bags and he relocates to UK. Several years pass. In fact, decades pass. In 2003, Dr. Gadia is in Vrindavan, Swami's ashram in Bangalore, and Swami asks him to speak to the students in Thrive Vrindavan. And with Swami's permission, Dr. Gadia shares this incident. Swami waits for him patiently to finish the story, and then Swami says, that soldier, he was a very evil man. He had killed a lot of innocent people. That day, when he saw my photo, mark Swami's words, I decided to transform his mind. Swami says, your mind is not an ordinary mind. It's a monkey mind, not an ordinary monkey. A monkey bitten by a drunken scorpion, right? So Swami says, I decided to transform his mind. And Swami goes on to say what happened to the soldier. The soldier goes back and he's frantically trying to get a picture of Swami. Now remember this, we are so casual. We have a picture in our wallet, we have a picture in every wallet. If you're a lady, you have one in every purse that you carry. Every time we see it, we should feel that Swami is in that picture with us. Yes, aunties, you're nodding. Yes, we all have a picture of Swami in our bags. He's just overcome with emotion, and Swami tells him, I decided to transform his mind. When he looked at my picture, he was praying for a picture of me, and finally he was able to find one in Kampala. He kept that picture in his room, and he was praying for days and weeks. And one day, Swami says, I appeared in his room, and I laughed, and I said, come to Puttaparthi. This man finds his way to Puttaparthi, sits for darshan. Swami comes to him, and Swami gives him one of his robes. Silently, Swami goes. Transform from a sinner. This is another story of transformation. In the Satyam Shivam Sundaram, Volume 2, this is Swami's biography written by Professor Kasturi, there is a chapter called With Wounded Wings. It's a beautiful chapter. I encourage you to read this. There's transformative power in reading the Lord's story, in hearing the Lord's glory. In the Navavida Bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, the first three, so much importance is given to listening to the Lord's glory. A lot of times we think Kirtanam is singing. Kirti is glory. Even hearing stories of the Lord is Kirtanam. And Smaranam, constantly thinking of God. In fact, Swami would say, Chinta mat karo, chintan karo. He would do this play on words. Don't worry, we worry about everything. My flight was delayed coming here. It was delayed by 3.5 hours, and I was worried, am I going to miss my connection? This morning I got late here coming for, Suprabhatam. We are constantly worried. Leave it to Swami. There is a reason Swami does everything. Right? In this chapter, called With Wounded Wings, there is a man named Kalpagiri who's done a heinous crime. He's actually committed murder. And we judge people like that, right? We judge somebody that has done a crime like that. So this man commits murder and he runs away from law enforcement. He goes up to the Himalayas, wears ochre robes, and he's going from ashram to ashram to ashram. And he does this for several years. Now he feels, okay, now nobody will recognize me. It's safe to go back south. He goes to all the Punya Kshetras thinking he can clean all his papam. Goes to Tirupati, Simhachalam, finds his way to Melkote, and then he hears that Shirdi Sai Baba has taken avatar and come as Sathya Sai Baba. He says, I have to go and visit. Comes via Penakonda and finds himself in Puttaparthi. And what does our dear Lord do? He calls him in for an interview. Swami calls him in for an interview, and Swami tells him, why do you behave like this? How long do you think you can run like this? It's going to catch up with you. You have to face the consequences for your actions, Swami tells him. And Swami gives him white clothes and he says, first remove these ochre robes. There is a meaning to this. You can't just take and wear it. Swami tells him to change. He tells him to go back to his hometown where he committed the crime. And Swami says, go and surrender. And this man cries. He says, but Swami, I will get the death penalty. I will be hanged. Swami is so kind. He says, I promise you, you will not get the death penalty. In fact, I will put a rosary, a japamala around your neck, Swami says. And Swami gives him vibhuti packets. He gets in the train. And on his way as he's going, he sees a man who's writhing in stomach pain. And, when Swami enters your life, he transforms you. And he has, this empathy for this man, which he never had in the past. He gives a vibhuti packet to him and he sees he's instantly cured. He does as Swami tells him. He lands up in prison. And he tells about Swami's glory. He's spreading Swami's kirtana. He's become an instrument of Swami. He's telling all these other prisoners, Chenagappa and others. Can you believe it? These prisoners, if you read it, it's so beautiful, so moving. They are doing Likita Japam. There is a prisoner who says, Swami, I'm going to write your name 10 million times. Ramanama, I'm going to write 10 million times. Swami sends him Likita Japam books. Swami is sending them Satyam Sham Sundaram. They are doing Parayana in the prison. They're doing Namasakirtanam. One man says, I have set up an altar for you and I'm lighting incense sticks and I'm singing your glory. I can't wait to have your darshan. Swami has entered their lives. Swami has transformed their lives already. And we must find ways to incorporate Namasmarana in our daily lives. If you're waiting for a flight is delayed, that's an opportunity for Namasmarana. You're waiting in line to get your food, an opportunity for Namasmarana. Swami is giving us these opportunities. If you look in the ashram, it's from one queue to another. Darshan line starting 4 a.m. in the morning, ice cream parlor line, stores line, everywhere there is a line for this reason. So you can think about God and not chit-chat at that time. And Dr. Reddy mentioned in his talk about the Arishad Vargas, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. And the best way to get rid of that, Swami says, is Namasmarana. This morning also, one of the speakers mentioned that it is the best medicine. Swami says, doctors talk about vitamin deficiency. They should be talking about getting vitamin G into your system. Vitamin G for God. That's what is missing in our lives, Swami says. In Sathya Sai Vahini, chapter 19, on prayer, Swami says 3 kinds of activity or prayer reach him directly. The chapter is on prayer, so he's specifically referring to prayer. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he says, what are these 3 kinds? A prayer that is not prompted by personal desire. A prayer that does not emanate from selfish love. It has to be unselfish love, and it should come from a pure heart. The last story I'm about to share with you is one of a boy born into a Christian family in God's own country, Kerala. He's born in this family where he's taught to love Jesus. He grows up chanting the Lord's Prayer, but when he's around 17 years old, he goes to college, and there's a strong influence of communism and atheism, and he takes to that path and he becomes a Naxalite. And Naxals they actually take up weapons and they fight. They believe they're doing it, that their cause is justified. That's no way to get justice, right? So he actually gets in trouble. He picks up arms. He does end up getting into different kinds of trouble. And he tries to evade the police, but eventually he's thrown in jail. And when he's thrown in jail, it's a time for introspection, isn't it? When you're alone, locked in a cell. At that time, a group of sevadals, devotees from a nearby samati in Kozhikode, they show up there, they conduct bhajans. No transformation yet. This one wasn't that easy. A little bit more work needed to be done. One of the sevadals offers prasadam of orange to all the inmates. And he hands an orange to this boy. His name is Philip Matthew Prasad. He offers him an orange. He's angered. He's seething from within. He picks up the orange. As the sevadal turns around, he flings it at him. It hits him on the head. The Sevadal, he rubs his head, picks up the orange, turns and looks at this boy. And he just smiles. No words exchanged. He leaves. That night, this young man goes back to his cell and he's chanting the Lord's Prayer. All these years he had given up God, he's chanting the Lord's Prayer. And the transformation occurred. Long story short, it's a beautiful story. Long story short, Swami enters his life. He decides to turn his life around. He says, yes, I'm fighting, but I have to fight the right way. He ends up studying, he becomes a lawyer, and he says, this is how I will get justice for these oppressed people. And Swami enters his life. He goes to see Swami. It's a beautiful story of how Swami enters his life. When he goes there, Swami calls him for an interview with his entire family, and Swami is giving him so much love. Swami tells him, let go of this guilt. Swami materialized something for every member in the family, and Swami sends him. But the story is, he goes around talking about Swami as his mentor and guru, and he goes to that same city, Kozhikode, where he was thrown in prison, and he shares this story. An elderly gentleman comes up to him and asks him to join him for a cup of coffee. And when he's drinking coffee with him in his home, the gentleman says, remember you mentioned about a man giving you an orange and you flinging? Yes, that's what caused this transformation. He says, that man was me. And he says, that day when I turned around and saw, I did not see an angry young man. I saw a sad child. And he says, I prayed to Swami. I said, Swami, enter this man's life, enter this child's life, and transform him. Make him love you. Make him a good citizen, and let him do good work. Maybe someday I'll sit with him and have coffee and we'll talk about you. That is exactly what they were doing. When Swami enters your life is transformed. Just like that. Now, we've heard stories of a thief, an atheist. Now, these are monumental transformations. Yesterday, when we were in the adoration workshop, Brother Philip, I don't know if you're here, Brother Peter, I think, he shared how, he's from here in Africa, and he shared how before he came to know of Swami, he was a meat eater, he used to drink and he used to smoke. But when he came to know of Swami, he dropped all of that cold turkey. Is that not a story of transformation? That too is a story of transformation. It is not enough that we call ourselves devotees. Swami said, Swami should call you as devotees. And Swami describes, he says, Manchi cheddalu kuda samamuga bhavinchuchundute bhakti naku. My definition of devotion is, and before somebody shared just before this, you should read Sister Vahini, I think. I feel like most of my talking points have already been covered, but it's just reinforcing. Swami wants us to hear some things over and over again. Swami says you should be able to see good and bad the same way. Have that equanimity. It's very, very important. He says, that is my definition of devotion. It is not important how long we've been with Swami. It's important how much we've absorbed Swami's teachings. I would like to conclude with a prayer given by Swami to Dr. Hislop. It's a prayer for all spiritual aspirants. For those in this hall that know this prayer, please join me and let's chant together. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work. Jai Sai Ram.